Hello, and welcome back to Advanced Rain Movement. Finished up goblins, and next we get to answer a mystery here, water skippers and seep. I know that they have similar movement patterns, but are they going to be two separate branches, or are they going to be included together as one entry? Or in sequence, I suppose. That's an option too. Unlike airborne and ground-based creatures, it is very difficult for seep or water skippers to find a direct path towards you. They cannot use the normal brain paths. As such, the brain makes a new set of paths solely for them. Okay, so this looks like if this was done in a reverse way, it would be... Well, I don't know, it's hard for it to be exactly the same, but... looks like there's not a whole lot I can actually do here. It's just going to be observation, and the Briar kill everything. Yeah, okay, so we're probably going to get something similar to this with seep in the next room, I guess. Let's consider the 4 maps the brain uses first. Okay. Air. Oh well, okay, let's start with the basic one first. Ground. Floor tiles, open doors, and platforms are valid. Trapdoors, bridges, hot tiles, ormites, and pressure plates are also considered as floor tiles in this case. Air. All the tiles that are valid for ground are valid for air, with the addition of pits and water. While it is a different map to ground, it works in exactly the same way, so it's easy to understand how it's used. Yep. And I guess air is only for Wraithwings? Because I can't think of anything else that could possibly use the air map. I know puffs don't, because puffs will actually be attracted to brains, which means that the brains are not directing the puff to you. Wall. All walls, normal, hard, crumbly, and master walls, and closed doors are valid. The rest are obstacles. Okay. Water. Only water allows for a valid path. All other tiles are obstacles. Note that the differences between these maps lie in the base floor tile only. Objects like force arrows, scrolls, potions, and the likes are obstacles to all path maps, while things like fuses and orthosquares are not. Because neither wall nor water maps can cross land to reach you, these maps also have an additional feature, the ability to calculate distances through obstacles. Despite the differences in what these two maps allow as passable terrain, they function identically. To start with, we will concentrate on water skippers and the water map in order to cut down on distractions. As we move around this body of water, you'll notice the water skippers will be desperately trying to stay as close to you as possible. At some points, this requires a large detour to the other side of the river. When directing water skippers or seep, the brain takes into account 2 things. The first we're already familiar with, the number of steps it takes to get from a square to you. The second is the number of obstacles between that square and you. For the water and wall path maps, obstacle distance has top priority. Along the vertical line of arrows you're standing on, the right side of the river is 1 obstacle away from you, and the left side of the river is 2 obstacles away from you. Okay. So... the right side of the river has 1 obstacle, and the left side has 2? Oh, right now, because I'm not on the arrow. Okay. However, traveling along the river on the right side passes through no extra obstacles, so the brain calculates that it's better for water skippers on the left side to travel around the river and reach the right side rather than staying on that side. At this point, the left side of the river is now only 1 obstacle away from you. This means that the closest squares in the river to you are the 2 river squares that are 2 moves away from you to the southwest. The recalculated water map now shows that the left side of the river is closer to you. The water skippers will now detour all the way around to reach this side, simply because of this. Once the closest squares in the water are decided, the map along the river is calculated just as we're familiar with, and the water skippers follow the map using the same brain movement preferences we've seen before. Okay. In this case, We can see that brained water skippers will always move towards the reachable squares in the area that are closest to you, even if that square doesn't actually lead straight to you. As you leave the river, so the number of obstacles between you and the water skippers increase. This means that more tiles along the river are the same distance from you. Brained movement preferences take the water skippers further north. Okay. One, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And that's because this tile, like the empty floor, is being considered an obstacle because it doesn't, because it's not a water tile. Okay. So yeah, I don't think there's been anything particularly new here. Moving through obstacles. Any brain visible obstacle in the water. Oh, 2 paths, okay. Any brain visible obstacle in the water and wall maps is treated the same. The brain will chart paths through it, but will prefer roads that reduce the number of visible obstacles it passes through. The force arrow area is a visible group of obstacles that the brain will chart a path around. However, in this room, forcing the water skippers into that area is the only way you will be able to kill them. The only way to get the water skippers into that area would be to move both you and them into a position such that they believe that moving into the arrows will reduce the number of obstacles between them and you. So long as the closest linked patch of water has less obstacles between you and it than nearby force arrow squares, the skippers will keep off the force arrows. Note that when measuring the number of obstacles a square is from you, any obstacle you are standing on isn't counted, but if the square itself is an obstacle, then that square itself is counted. Okay, and I saw that the stalwart was doing some stuff, so I'm actually going to start over here. And I'm just going to pay attention to what the stalwart's doing. Okay, so here, stalwart is trying to attack. So that... Right, you still see a path. So there we go. So that's just to put a sword here, so they can't get back anymore. But they think they can get through the sword. Interesting. Okay. That's one use for stalwart, I suppose. Any patches of water wall that are disconnected from the section the water skipper or seep is in also count as obstacles. Ah, okay, that's interesting. So this water is an obstacle. Okay, because they have no path to it. Water skippers will usually treat their section of water as the only place they can move in, and find the closest square to you within it. Even though there are seemingly less obstacles along a path leading through the nearby water channel, the skippers still head for the southeast corner of their lake. The true logic behind all of this is much more complicated, but that is a more advanced topic. This is advanced concepts. Is that advanced topic going to be in another room, or is it just being given up on? As you approach the force arrows, they become more attractive to the water skippers. Compare how many obstacles there are between you and various squares in the force arrow field, as well as you and the closest empty water square. Of course, in order to enter the force arrow field, the water skippers will need to approach them from the correct direction. At this point, the closest water square is 1 obstacle away from you, and the closest row of force arrows is 2 obstacles away. 1 obstacle. 2, okay. Okay. The closest empty water square is now 1 obstacle away, while the second row of force arrows is 2 obstacles away. One obstacle. 2. If you wait here a little, 1 skipper will move on to the arrows. The reason for this is due to their pre-order to wait, the only time they move unbrained. At this point, the second row of force arrows is now equal distance, 2 obstacles away from you than the closest empty water space. Due to the proximity of the empty squares, the skipper can only be lured into the first and second rows of arrows via brain movement. It is... okay, now you're trying to get all the way around, because this is closer. It is instructive to observe how brain movement preferences direct the water skipper's route. Same as always, northwest, east, south, wait, northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast. Normally, it would also be possible to simply wait for the skippers to come around the long way. However, in this room, we have closed off the route they took. You'll have to draw them through the arrow field. Okay. No problem. Understanding the interaction between normal brain distance and obstacle distance is key to predicting how brain, sleep, and water skippers move. What does the scroll say? Continue this way for a more detailed look at one of the main pathfinding quirks Seep and water skipper use and choose a path towards you. This lesson is optional, it's included only for completeness. Okay. Seep bait. Water skippers and Seep. Wait, this is an information room, okay. Water skippers and Seep react identically to decoys and stalwarts, even when brained. When a decoy is in range and no other target presents itself, they will act as if unbrained and head towards the closest decoy. However, as with brained roaches, a stalwart in range will negate any nearby decoys. The Seep will become brained again if this occurs, and it will once more seek the best path towards you. Okay, so you step off of here. Out of range, okay. There we go. But unlike roaches and like goblins, oh dear, if a brained Seep or water skipper can kill their chosen target on the next turn, they will. Even though they are not attracted to stalwarts when brained, they will kill given the opportunity. This looks like a pressure plate. It's going to lock me in here and it's going to open this door which helps the water skipper somehow. However, brained monsters that kill in this manner only wish to kill their chosen target. If they cannot reach their target or any other stalwart nearby will not be targeted. Okay. It's sometimes useful to remember that both distance and movement order determines which target a monster will prefer. Right, they prefer later in the turn order, right? If multiple targets are of equal distance, a monster will prefer the one with the slowest movement order. Yes, okay. Same as time clone, temporal projection decision making then. So a stalwart that moves 12th in the order would be picked over one that moves 9th in the order. The more preferable stalwarts in the last straight are protected by force arrows. This will prevent the skipper from attacking them. Since the skipper cannot attack its more preferable target, it will not attack the others while it passes. I think I just have to wait here. If I take the bomb, yeah. So are these all in order? 2, 3, 4, 5. So what's going to happen? Oh, okay, so you're going to grab all these. Here, you're going to go for this one. You're going to go for this one. You're going to go for the slow one. Then you're going to come here. I think you're just going to... Oh, no, you're going to backtrack. Okay. I think that's what I see. So you're going to kind of backtrack and do that skipping thing. You don't come diagonally off of the... Why? Because this is obstacle, so you're as close to me as possible, so I actually need to back up. Okay. So from here... Yeah, you still go south. There we go. Here, you prefer these slower. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So here you prefer this one, but you can't. So I'll take this one, No, you won't take this one. You'll just move south. Okay, that's the point of this, right? Yeah, you just move south. You can't hit the one that you want. Once you get here, you're going to want this one. So you're not going to do much of anything. Use the bomb. Stalwarts are also more preferable targets than Vithro at equal distance. Yeah, I think I saw that with the Goblin Room, actually. I tested that. And whilst water skippers can cross land when attacking a target, they are unable to cross land into a stalwart if it is not their target. Okay, so they would kill the one stalwart and then they'd have to go back into the water. They can't kill two stalwarts in a row. Challenge room. Water skipper nests. Oh no, do they act brained in a special way? Also Omplic, that's kind of cool. Ah. I need all of the Omplic's line of sight to be broken, such that these two kill themselves on hot tiles, and these three will light the fuses, which will blow up these brains for me. Okay, I see what's going on here. Water skipper nests are affected by brains as well. When unbrained, a nest will seek out the closest target and spawn a skipper every 10 turns in one of the surrounding squares that is closest to that target. Brained water skipper nests. That's not a thing I ever thought I would have to consider. Like, I knew that if a brain sees you, then it alerts them, but I didn't realize there was more to it than that. It uses standard unbrained movement preferences to decide which square to spawn in. If one square is blocked, it tries the next closest. In the case of ties, the priority is as normal. North to south, west to east. Okay. Of course, like the majority of spawning enemies, it will force areas north of squares that would normally restrict movement from the nest's tile. An unbrained water skipper nest is easily distracted by decoys and stalwarts in the same way as most other unbrained monsters. So the presence of either of these can cause the nest to replace water skippers in different directions. To release them. Okay. When brained, things are a little different. A brained nest is not distracted by decoys or stalwarts, providing a brain can detect you. And rather than releasing skippers in your direction, it will release them according to the brain's path instead. Okay, that kind of makes sense. Brain movement preferences are also used. In the case of ties, the priority is now northwest, east, south, northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast. So the nest is essentially obeying the brain in deciding which direction to release skippers in. While a brained water skipper nest may not care about stalwarts and decoys, do remember that the skippers it spawns do care, in the ways we covered in the previous room. Water skipper nests also share a unique trait with goblins. When you are within 2 squares of them along the brain's path, no obstacles other than the tile you're standing on, they will use unbrained distances and preferences instead. I wonder why. That's curious. That means that when you're close enough to a nest, it will change the way it places skippers, even if a brain can sense you. This also means that this can once more be lured by stalwarts if another happens to be close enough to the same nest as you are. Okay. Now that is weird to consider that the goblin and the water skipper nest are, I guess, the only enemies that have different behavior if they are within 2 tiles of you. And the fact that water skipper nest is included in that list of now 2 items is kind of baffling to me. I'm sure there was a reason for it. I'm sure they had a reason. Finally, note that the brains themselves, like brains themselves, a water skipper nest is a brain invisible obstacle. Brains will pathfind through it without increasing the obstacle count. Okay. So I have a decoy that I can place somewhere. And I have the ability to not be invisible. And I can do these things before or after I come in here. I suspect that invisibility I want to just run around here and trigger things. Let's just assume that we don't need the decoy. I think the decoy is to kill this nest at the very end. That's what my guess would be. Okay, I am visible. I don't want a whole bunch of these coming, do I? Okay. Oh, that's why I'm not invisible, so I can get these guys to target properly. Okay. Here's decoy. I screwed up. I need to kill them before I kill the nest. I can get within 5 tiles of them, they won't be affected by the decoy anymore, but I don't think I can do that. Yeah, okay, so this didn't quite work. Okay. In that case, I think what I want is I want to do something like this, where it spawns there, and then I use that water skipper to cut that beam. Oops, to cut that beam for me. Yes, okay. It doesn't matter which way the Onslaught are facing. Oops, okay. But this is pretty neat, actually. Okay, that was cool. And then the challenge room. Number 1? I saw that. A reminder, while this area concentrates on the water path map and the terms and obstacles that apply to it, the same logic can be applied to the wall path map using walls instead of water. When the brain works out its map, it starts from your location and works outward. First it works out which tiles are 1 square away from you, and then which tiles are 2 squares away, then 3, and so on. Okay. With the water and wall maps, it has a new factor to take into account, how many obstacles the tiles are away from you. This is a higher priority, so the brain now works out which tiles are 0 obstacles away first, then 1 obstacle away, 2 obstacles away, and so forth. Okay, actually, just because this just occurred to me, I'm just going to comment now. There is a post that has been put into onto the Drawd forums about brain path maps, about path mapping, path maps in general, which was interesting, an interesting read. I don't think it's applicable knowledge for actual puzzle solving because it's too complicated, too much to keep track of, but it is very interesting to just look at as a study and, you know, benefits and flaws of different types of programming for doing pathfinding algorithms. But I'm mentioning this now because Eric Hermansen, I guess the father of Drod, the guy behind the original iteration of the game, made a post in the forum talking about why brains work the way they work, and it's because the processing power of calculating for every monster having a different path map calculated by the brain was going to be too much work for a computer, I guess in the, was it the 80s? That was the first, when did the first Drod game come out? But yeah, that was going to be way too much effort. You know, you have a room full of roaches and you have a single brain, and then suddenly every single roach has to calculate a different path map every single turn. So that's why he settled on the brain just having a single path map, or I guess now 4 path maps. Well, I guess Brain Wraithwings always had their pits, but whatever. Yeah, so that's why the path map originates from Vithro and goes outwards in, I guess, kind of rings like that, because that was a much more efficient algorithm. So you only had to calculate the path map for the entire room once, basically. Although, as we see here, there are some complexities with things like obstacles and sieve and water skippers, which didn't exist in the original Drod. But yeah, that's kind of interesting. Anyway, a very interesting thread, definitely worth reading, checking it out, just for interest and for, you know, understanding the code behind what's going on just a little bit better. Across obstacles. Okay, where were we? Yes, so we start with Vithro, and then we go out and calculate distances, including the number of obstacles that we have to go through in each pass. Across obstacles, this method of mapping works in the same way we're familiar with, but when we reach open areas of water in the water map, for example, we start to see differences. If one square in a large empty lake is, say, 5 obstacles away from you, then all squares in that lake must be 5 obstacles away from you. That makes a lot of sense, actually. That's pretty clever. Okay. But what if squares on the other side of the lake? We mentioned in the last room that the brain treats disconnected sections of water as obstacles when it reaches new sections of water, so that the two sections don't affect each other. This is not strictly true, however. What happens when we leave a lake of water in the water map is that every square we've gone through now counts as an obstacle. Okay, so let's see if I got this right. I step here, the square I'm on does not count as an obstacle? Tiles, yeah. 0 obstacles away. I think the tile that we're on doesn't count as an obstacle. So we step on this scroll. 1 obstacle away, here 2 obstacles away, but the entire lake is therefore two obstacles away, 3 obstacles away. Okay, so this is going to be 3 obstacles away from us, if I've read this right. Observe the water skipper on the other side of the lake. How many obstacles are there between you and it? The answer is 7. Even though the quickest route is due east through the lake, it counts as an obstacle once we leave it. Huh? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we're 7 tiles away. But wasn't it saying if one square is, say, 5 obstacles away from you, then all squares on that lake must be 5 obstacles away from you. Oh, no, that's that last part. Okay. Right. So when we leave... Right. So right now it's saying, okay, I'm 1 obstacle away. 2 obstacles away. This is all 2 obstacles away. Here, oh wait, we're not in the lake anymore. Let's go back and add 1 for every other lake tile we had to get to here. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that's going on. There's fuse for some reason. Okay. This rule of obstacle distance has highest priority, so when a path reaches a lake that's 2 obstacles away from you, the brain will mark all the squares in that lake as being 2 obstacles away. This creates a path map within the lake itself. But when leaving the lake, each of the squares that were traveled becomes an obstacle. What happens if we have a windy river? I wish that they had other water skippers that were released. Although I guess you can't really... No, you could have done a setup with a roach and a stalwart to get rid of a sword that would release a water skipper, maybe. There would have been a way to do this without disabling force arrows on water and stuff like that. So I think what it's going to say here is that here we then end up with a really long distance because we're going to wind. How many obstacles are there between you and the water skipper? The answer is 9. Right, because it's going to go 1, 2. The entire lake is 2, but we got 1. Does it go this way? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep. Why was it 9? We know that each of the tiles in the second lake were 1 obstacle away from you. How many moves is the final square in the lake away from you? It had to follow the path. The marked path shows a sample... Oh, cool. Okay. Shows a sampled route used to calculate how many obstacles there were. When it left the river, the steps taken were converted into obstacles. Therefore, there were 9 obstacles between you and the marked tile. That's a fun use of scripting. This is ABM target. Okay. Are they still there? No. There are other routes with the same distance. The one shown was one of several brain movement preferences, and actual movement restrictions would dictate which would be used by a particular monster. One last example. How many obstacles between you and the water skipper this time? The path along the river is longer now, but the answer is still 9. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay. That doesn't make sense. So, enlighten me. The path can leave the river at any time and start counting obstacles again, converting all steps up till then into obstacles. The only restriction is that it cannot re-enter the river once it's left. That's why we can't find a route straight across. Ah, so it only uses the river once. That's... Okay, that's the key piece of information. The marked path shows a 9-tile route that still works this time around. It hits the river as soon as possible, and when it leaves the river, it never re-enters it. When dealing with an isolated body of water between you and the target, the path must reach the water in the shortest number of obstacles. If the path then leaves the water, it cannot re-enter it. This sounds like a headache to work with, actually. It's really neat, though, seeing how this works. But I shudder to think of the puzzles that will be coming up in the next room, undoubtedly, demonstrating this. We can also ignore the body of water entirely if we can find another path around it. In this case, we may not enter the area at all, but it may end up being faster. As the number of isolated bodies of water increases, so does the complexity of those choices. In order to pathfind through a body of water, a path must get to it, using as few obstacles as possible, even if such a route to it starts by heading away from your target. So there are indeed situations where it may be faster to simply avoid that section of water entirely. So how does this affect pathfinding over water? The main thing is that it can affect which tile within the monster's region is actually closest. A different path may enter from a different direction. In the next room we shall look at a practical example, yep. Although as far as impractical examples go, I don't think scripted monsters generally use brain movement, but I'm reminded again of the leech from the custom element contest. And I don't think that the leech was scripted to be brain compatible. Actually, that'd be something that'd be interesting to talk with Chaco about if because the leech was my favorite element from that contest, and I would really like to do something with it at some point. So having a version scripted to use, like, it probably should obey the brain like a water skipper does, but then the ability to move over land and water when angry would be quite interesting. I think that would make it actually an even more unique and interesting enemy if it could be brained. Now, this is interesting. Maybe a scripting challenge for myself, or hoist the work off on Chaco, maybe. We'll see. But that would be something fun to do at some point. But yes, I've been a lot of rambling. Let's just go. Challenge room, advanced water navigation number 2. This looks like the end of the line. Okay, before we do anything else, what's going on here? You are brained, therefore you ignore the stalwart, and you try to find the quickest path to me. The quickest path to me is going to be through here. You're going to go orthogonally as much as possible. You prefer north over south because of your brain preference. Although I guess I got the hint from that, so I can't claim to have figured that out entirely on my own. So you're going to go orthogonally, then you're going to go diagonally to this square. From here, you want to go into the water as soon as possible. Brain movement, you prefer orthogonal or diagonal, so I think you're actually going to jump here. And then you're going to jump back into the water and come at me this way. Right? In this room, you'll note that the only way to kill the water skipper is to lure it towards the stalwart. This would ordinarily not prove difficult. The stalwart is guarding the water inlet that by far reaches the closest to you. Right. Complicating matters is the moat in between. The wall in the center of the moat means that any path cannot take a shortcut through it. Remember that when a brain path finds through a river, it cannot re-enter a river once it has left it. As such, you will find it rather difficult to lure the skipper towards the stalwart. Feel free to experiment with this room to familiarize yourself with the previous lessons. Of course, you cannot walk over land. Okay, so here, yeah, now you're closer to go this way. But now we're equidistant again, so you might as well, right, because this entire lake is considered to be the same distance from me. Right, that's what's going on. So if I wanted you in here, I would have to... How could I get you here? I cannot cross, because of your presence, I cannot cross... Can I stab the brain? Is that... That would be the easy way to do this, wouldn't it? But yeah, because of these Ormites, I can't actually get in here. I wanted to get onto here so that I could lure you closer this way. Because if I was standing here, I think the closest path to me would be here. Okay, so now that you're down there. Right, because you go north. Northwest, wait. I wonder if these have anything to do with this. Okay, I'm not really sure what I'm doing with that. I did notice this. That doesn't let me get anywhere, though. I could do that. Does that help? But you prefer north. So if I tried that same trick from up here, there we go. Interesting. That gives us just enough time to get out. Now that you're not brained, yeah, you prefer the stalwart. Okay. So it's just a matter of oh. Well, this is tricky. I can't kill the stalwart. vertical preference. Do I still need that brain? I might actually still need that brain, because I don't see any way to get the unbrained water skipper in there. Yeah, I'm going to do that, but I'm just up here. And by here, it's now too late. Vertical preference. Get in here. Doesn't do me a whole lot of good. Oops. Oh, that's fine. We need to restart anyway. Okay, well, let's just start the whole room over. Okay, so I killed the brain. I can kill the brain by taking that northern path. However, I don't think that actually helps me particularly. So let's instead do... Yeah, I don't think that helps at all. Let me do that. If I just had one more move. Yeah, we've already figured this out. We can't get through here. So is there a way... You're being told to wait. You're being told to wait. You'll make an unbrained move towards the stalwart if the stalwart is closer to you. Is there any way? No, there's no way to get you to do that. I can get you up to there. That's the furthest I can get you. Then if I start... Yeah, it doesn't matter, because the closest I can get you is that far away, really. And then... This is all just the same. Why am I doing it that way? I can do that. I can get one away. But there you catch up. There you catch up. Okay. Start thinking about something else. What's the point of these outcroppings? Does it matter? We can change... Okay, so what was it saying about the moat? The moat here cannot be entered and exited, which means that this wall is actually acting as a wall for the brain path map. It cannot path through this, which means that taking any position along these peninsulas, I guess, cannot... It will necessarily involve the water skipper coming along this way. I already tried this. This doesn't work. So what is your path to me right now? Your path to me is 1, 2... Your path to me is currently 2. So what I need to do is I need to set it up so that your path to me through a... obstacle here. It's faster. So I need you to decide that instead of taking the one path to get to me, you're better off taking the two to go through here. Because then, preference, let's say you're here, and you're trying to get to here. Okay, if I had to go in the other direction. Okay, how does that help me? If the water skipper is here, it takes two paths to get to here, or this is all one body and it takes one path to go through here. So I don't think I can actually force it to make that kind of a decision. This is always going to be one away from me to get to the body of water as opposed to two, at which point it's still going to have to go around this way anyway. Okay, I assume that this has to do with the brains somehow, so... I doubt that killing the brain is going to make this easier. I know I've already tried this, but... yeah. Okay, let's go back and read these again. First, it works out which tiles are one square away from you, then which are two, then which are three, etc., etc. Starting with ourselves. Starts from your location. I've been starting from the skipper's location. That's one way in which my thinking has been wrong this whole time. Square of boundary counts as an obstacle. Okay. Show me the path. Yeah, so starting from here, these is going to prefer the orthogonal, given a tie break, it prefers orthogonal, diagonal like so. So in this case, I can leave at any time, right? So this, the point of this is showing from here, we go diagonal, diagonal like this. For orthogonal. Okay. Let's try this again. This is saying we have to lure it, blah blah blah. Okay. So from here, these are going to be equal distant. Choose this one, this one. Then we're taking a path through the river like this to get to here. Go down here like that. So how do we ever get a path that wants to go through like this? I don't think we do. Like, it's never going to want to go through the 2, it's always going to want to go through the 1, because these are all the same distance. So unless we can make this closer than this somehow, how can we do that? 1, 2, this is too close. Here is a spot where there's only one difference. So now we're looking at this spot and this spot. Okay, so we're here and here. I want those to be equal to get to me. 1. And I mean, there's no way that's ever going to be shorter. We'll do it on this side, but same problem. Like, without getting in here. Likewise here, you prefer, you want to be to the west as much as possible. Like, I understand why this works. I understand the movement preferences, so I know how I can get around the water skipper. And I know that I can force it back up. But once I've done that, there's no more brain path maps. And then it becomes hopeless. I can still get out. So through one obstacle before you hit the water. But because of this obstacle, like I said, I can't hang out here because the only way it's ever going to find a path to me is to go all the way around, right? And if I ever find a path which is equidistant from wherever you are, you're just going to tie break to the north. What if you were here? Do you tie break north? Yes, because you don't want to move diagonally. Okay, if I stay on the outside, what good does that do me? Yeah, I'm one extra tile away. Okay. Yeah, so I obviously don't understand what's going on here. I think I'm probably just going to have to cut the video and work on this on my own here, because I have no idea what is going on. Get you here. Obviously, I get you here, the stalwart killed you. But oh, the stalwart has a force arrow, apparently. Wait, facing that way? Oh, right, so that the stalwart doesn't just run onto the Ormites. Okay. Which means that if the... I don't know, like I found this spot that's one, but it doesn't seem to matter. Okay, what about if I calculated you coming down this way? Well, no, because that's not how it works. It builds the path from Beethro. We are one. Here we clearly ignore the body of water. We don't jump in here. So that would be the advantage of these then. If I was here, the path that it would take is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, like this. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I'd be 18 away. What if I went the other way? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I don't think so. You said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, it would be faster to take this path and then to cut here. But how much faster? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. That's 22. Not even... ignoring the fact, 23, 24. Yeah, no, that's pointless. And I can just do trial and error, but I'm not going to get anywhere with that. Yes, this is approaching an hour. I guess we're going to finish Water Skippers in the next part. So unless I'm going to keep recording. I'm going to keep recording for a bit, but if I don't get a solution, then I mean, if I do get a solution, it's just going to be random. So actually scratch that. I'm just going to take a break. So yeah, that's it. Finishing Water Skippers next time. I will see you then. Well, that was silly. This is like 2 minutes later, and I suddenly thought of something, and yeah, yeah. So, turns out, so what my insight was that it seems suspicious to me that I could not, or that they gave me enough room to be able to get around this water skipper like this. That this was just barely long enough. So then I started thinking, what if maybe it is unbrained, and like, what's an important difference between brained and unbrained behavior for the water skipper? And of course, it is now attracted to the stalwart, which is the missing piece of the puzzle. So if we do it from the north here, because of the stalwart's sword being in that spot, this doesn't work from the south. It doesn't work if you get eaten by a water skipper either. But yes, from here we have barely enough time to get into here. Well, okay, more than enough actually. And now, from this position, if I step here, we are equally distant, but it prefers the slower in the turn order, which is going to be the stalwart after me. And that's all it takes. Yeah. Okay, so at least that's done. I would have been really irritated if I'd had to look up a hint on that one, so I'm glad I did get it, but man, that was it's tricky. The advanced brain movement, but then it's like, how is the brain movement not the, like, in this case, it being brained is a disadvantage. Despite you having less ability to maneuver it and get around it on your own, it allows the stalwart to play a role, which, that was something. And of course, that leaves us with Rock Giants and Omflic. So that's where we will take it up in the next episode. I will see you then.